We're living in an era of unprecedented threats coming from directions no one could have anticipated. Jill Stein, you just saw, now a Russian agent. Here's a new one we told you about last night: racist trees. In Palm Springs, California, city officials are planning to clear-cut a grove of tamarisk trees because they're racist. Locals say they were planted more than 50 years ago to separate a golf course from an African-American neighborhood. Last night we spoke to a local resident about their sinister presence. Here's part of the conversation.
If you've done any research on the tree, you'll know that's one of the nastiest trees around, and it's also been declared an environmental disaster by the federal government.
What?
They grow to be 60
because
feet
it's
tall,
a wait, no, slow down. Now, well, hold on. Hold on. Because that tree is a foreign tree, you're calling it
Correct.
Nasty? Okay,
absolutely.
I guess. Question is, could Palm Springs be overreacting at all to the racist trees in its midst? Aptly named Forrest Richardson is a golf course architect. He's consulted on the course in question, actually. Ethan Bierman is a radio show host, and they join us tonight. First to you, Ethan. You've been following this. You're from California. Clearly, this is the definition of structural racism. But I wonder if it couldn't be worse. I mean, these are tamarisk trees. If they were white pine trees, would they be more racist, do you think?
No, the trees themselves aren't racist. It was the actions putting them there in the first place. But also, I think it's really important to note, these trees in particular have been a fire hazard this year. You look at, Fox has done a great job covering like the Thomas fire. Tamarisk trees themselves have been explosive during these fires that have been happening. So not only do we have the aspect of the traditional, the origin of the planting of these trees being to separate the black and people of color community across the street after their homes were demolished, by the way, by the city of Palm Springs under racist conditions. This is one of those times, let's set the record straight. Let's clear out trees that are fire hazard. Let's not waste the water, and let's set things
so everybody
straight.
wins. The trees are not just bigoted, but they're flammable. Forrest, here's my concern. If we take down the racist trees, could the homes behind them be hit by racist golf balls?
Well, I don't know. I would like to think that nothing's racist, especially in today's world.
I would too, but my eyes are open now.
The reality is that I don't know why these trees were planted. I don't think that there's any clear indication of why they were planted. One reason that we plant trees on golf courses, especially on narrow corridors, which this happens to be. This is about 240 feet in width, whereas today we would generally get 350 to almost 400, is to protect adjacent homes and property, whether it be a school or houses. And in my opinion, I think the win-win would be to get everyone on board and say what's good for the homeowners and what's good for the golf course and what's good for the other homeowners.
Sure, but it's 2017. We don't do compromise. I mean, come on now. It's the modern era. But let me just ask you, is there, just to clarify, as a landscape guy, are there other reasons other than simply bigotry that they might have been planted?
I did as much research as I could. When I worked briefly on a study for this golf course, we got a lot of historical data, and I was able to find what we think is an early 1960s image that actually shows that this hedge of tamarisk trees was probably there before many of the houses were built. Not all of them, but the hedge was probably predated many of the homes being built there. So,
but that, I mean, obviously that doesn't mean they're not racist trees. I mean, because, sometimes it's not obvious if a tree is racist or not. But Ethan, let me just get, and I sort of buy your point that they're both bigoted and a fire hazard. But I wonder if this isn't a teaching moment, right? A time when we could all learn. Instead of cutting them down, maybe we could make them better trees somehow, prune them. Is that not a possibility?
No, let's get them out of there. Let's get back to some native trees that we have in California.
Seems kind of
that's pure desert.
What do you mean? Wait, slow down. What do you mean? For a guy who's in California, I'm serious. Palm trees are not native. Eucalyptus are not native. Should you expel everything from California that's not native? Okay, so are you a nativist now?
Yeah, when it comes to vegetation, absolutely. Eucalyptus trees have become a real problem with tipping over in the storms.
When you're calling other people bigoted, all right. They weren't originally from California, therefore we have to kill them.
But come on, Tucker, we have a severe water problem in California. We have a lack of leadership in Sacramento. We have a lack of leadership in D.C. when it comes to the water issue in California. And we're diverting water to water trees. Why are we doing this?
I know, I agree.
There's so many layers here.
But Forrest, let me just finally close out. I mean, is it possible that if we cut these down, you don't always know what you've got till it's gone? I mean, if you were to pave it and put in a parking lot, do you think you might regret that?
Well, the trees are serving a purpose, I can tell you that. Now, if they could maybe be replaced by better trees,
yeah.
You know, I think your guest last night mentioned eucalyptus, so it's interesting your guest tonight is saying no eucalyptus, and that's
because
why.
I got to go, but they're foreign trees. Yeah. We're against foreigners now. Forrest Easton, thank you for that. I think you've cleared up a lot.
Good to be with you.
Merry Christmas,
Thank
Tucker.
you.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas. Well, the government of Palm Springs, California, out in the desert, is plotting a war on racist trees. Since the 1960s, a row of tamarisk trees has separated Tockwitz Creek Golf Course from a historically black neighborhood. Now, locals say the trees were planted with racist intent, and the city plans to clear-cut them as a result, as punishment. The cost, $169,000. Trey Daniel is a Palm Springs resident who supports cutting down the racist trees, and he joins us tonight. Mr. Daniel, thanks a lot for coming on.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me.
I want to put up on the screen, at first I thought, wow, this is a crazy story, but then I thought, we've learned a lot about what's racist in 2017. Here are some of the things we've learned this year are racist, okay? Ice cream trucks, car insurance, The Little Mermaid, Dr. Seuss, milk, math, science, the Bible, grammar, the iPhone X, emojis, jingle bells, babies, solar eclipse, the anti-racist book To Kill a Mockingbird is racist, and of course, Apu from The Simpsons. Now trees in Palm Springs are racist. Can you tell us how you reach this conclusion? What racist sentiments have they expressed to you? How can you prove these trees are racist?
These trees, Tucker, are not racist. You're the one that said they're racist. A tree is neutral. It's benign. And it's not the tree. It is the individuals and their intent when that particular type of tree was planted in that particular location back in 1958, 59, 60, 61.
Right.
You see, that neighborhood on the 14th and 15th fairway is the original African-American neighborhood of Palm Springs.
Right.
Now, as late as 1950, the National Board of Realtors had in their code of ethics, and I'm paraphrasing, that no realtor should be instrumental in introducing into a neighborhood any race or nationality that will cause property values to deteriorate. Now,
I'm aware of that. We had a lot of a lot of awful things were in those codes. I know that.
That's right. And yes, they were. And you see that golf course, that black housing development in 1960 is right on the 14th and 15th fairway. You build golf courses for one purpose, and that's to sell homes. You cannot sell homes to white people or anyone else
but hold on.
a golf course in 1960.
Hold on. No, but you also build golf courses to play golf. But I'm wondering, so I have no doubt, I mean, though you haven't proved it, but I'm willing to believe you that there was racist intent in planting these trees and in a lot of things going on in this country 55 years ago. But why are we punishing the trees for that? You just conceded.
We're not punishing
that
trees.
They're not, well,
as I said,
killing
the trees are benign. Because the African American, the black families whose properties are adjacent to those trees, and if you've done any research on the tree, you'll know that's one of the nastiest trees around, and it's also been declared an environmental disaster by the federal government.
What?
They grow to be 60
because
feet
it's
tall,
a wait,
and they
no,
grow to
slow
be
down.
25
Now,
feet
well,
wide.
hold on. Now, well, hold on. Because that tree is a foreign tree, you're calling it nasty? Okay,
absolutely.
I guess the California I grew up in was a little bit more welcoming to foreigners. Just because the tree is not from California doesn't mean you have to kill it and call it names like racist.
Then why is the federal? We're not going to talk about it. We're going to talk about that tree, and the way it is not maintained has depressed and deprived black families whose properties are contiguous to and adjacent to the 14th and 15th fairway for 65 years from enjoying, and their property taxpayers, from enjoying the same economic benefits of being on a golf course, the same aesthetic benefits, and the same social benefits.
Has it protected those houses from golf balls at all? I mean, there's always an upside to these things.
People don't go out and say, we're doing this for a racist reason. They go out and say, we're going to give you landscaping. In fact, we're going to landscape you right out of existence. And oh, by the way, these trees are going to protect you from golf balls. And oh, by the way,
well, but there's some truth in that, isn't there?
We could have planted eucalyptus.
I don't want it. The people who made these decisions,
but they didn't.
Right, I got it.
Only this tree on this section of the golf course.
Okay, don't attack the trees again. I found that offensive just because they're not from California. But let me just ask a final question. The people who made these decisions are long dead in almost every case. And yet you're still hell-bent on killing these trees, who, by your own admission, committed no sin, did nothing wrong. Does that seem a little unfair? Shouldn't we punish the guilty and not the innocent?
I really take exception to what you just said. This has nothing to do with the trees. It has to do with black families and their
they're just getting killed in it, but it's nothing to do with them. They're just kind of in the way. You know, if you were a tree, you might feel a little differently, and maybe meditate on that
are you a tree?
Tonight. I'm not.
What species of
but
tree
at least
are you?
I'm big enough to think about their perspective in this, and you're killing
and you're not concerned about the black people and their property values.
No, and I'm not saying I'm not concerned.
You would rather save a tree. You would rather save a tree than help a black family.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm merely saying, why punish the innocent?
Why would you not help these black families improve their property values?
Well, I would love to have them on and talk about it.
That all the white
but I'm
families
just not
do
convinced. Hold on, slow down. I'm just not convinced that trees need to die to make you feel better. That's it. But look, just think about that and come back. We can continue this conversation. I wish we had more time. Trey, thank you.